Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into one of your requests today.
Oh, excellent.
It's about building resilient communities.
Right?
And you all shared this handbook called Roots of Resilience.
Mm.
I've been looking through it.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. It really digs into creating strong and collaborative organizations, which seems super relevant to what we talk about all the time.
Absolutely.
And it's not just theory. It's got all these practical tools and real-world examples, which I love.
Yeah, that's what's so cool about this Roots of Resilience. It actually uses this framework
Oh, interesting.
called the Universal Structural Design Process.
Okay.
And it's way more than just designing buildings or structures. It's a whole way of thinking about community building in this really thoughtful, holistic way.
I like that.
Hmm.
So let's unpack this universal structural design process a bit. The first step, and I think this is brilliant, is observe and listen.
Yes.
Instead of jumping right into solutions, which I think is so tempting for a lot of us, it's all about really understanding the community first. The resources, the challenges, almost like taking a deep breath and immersing yourself in the environment before you start, trying to fix things.
Exactly. Yeah, resisting that knee-jerk reaction we all have and really getting to know the community on a much deeper level.
hmm
And the handbook even suggests using these ethnographic methods, which is usually something you think about with anthropologists, right?
Yeah.
But it encourages spending time in the community, participating in local activities, attending ceremonies, really seeing the world through the community's eyes.
I love that. Imagine yourself, attending a village meeting, helping with a community garden,
Yeah.
or even learning a traditional craft.
Right.
You're not just observing from a distance, you're becoming a part of the fabric of that community.
That's where the real insights come out, right?
hmm
When you build trust and integrate yourself into the culture, you can start to understand the community's values, needs, aspirations on a much deeper level. You see things you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. Totally. And the handbook also highlights the importance of stakeholder interviews, which are basically, just conversations with people from all walks of life within the community. You're asking open-ended questions, really listening to their stories, their experiences, their perspectives.
These are so crucial because they uncover these hidden pain points and aspirations that you might miss if you were only relying on observation.
Yeah.
So by understanding the challenges people face in their daily lives, you get a clearer picture of what truly matters to them.
There's this quote in the handbook that I absolutely love. It says, "Ask, what challenges do you face in your daily work?" This invites detailed responses that reveal pain points and aspirations. I think that's such a brilliant question because it moves beyond those surface level answers and gets to the heart of what people are struggling with, but also what they're hoping for.
Right.
It's so insightful.
And all of these initial steps might seem time consuming,
Right.
but the handbook stresses that they are absolutely essential for laying that strong foundation.
So by truly understanding the community, you're setting the stage for solutions that are effective, sustainable, and genuinely relevant to the people you're trying to help.
It's like anything, right? You have to
Yeah.
put in the work up front to really get the results you want in the end.
Exactly.
So you've done your due diligence with observing and listening.
Mm-hmm.
You move on to the next phase of this universal structural design process, which is clarify ethics and shared values.
Yeah.
And what I find really interesting about this step is the idea of creating a community charter.
Oh, yeah.
It's like bringing people together around a shared purpose, establishing some common ground before you even dive into, designing solutions.
And what's really important to highlight here is that the community charter isn't just like a feel-good exercise.
Right.
It's a practical tool that will actually guide decision-making throughout the whole process.
Okay.
So it ensures consistency,
Mhm.
it helps to resolve conflicts, and provides the shared reference point for values. Think of it like a constitution for the community,
Oh, I love that.
outlining the core principles that will guide your efforts.
Yeah, creating that roadmap for collaboration, making sure everyone's on the same page, working towards the same goals.
Exactly. And the handbook suggests a really interesting process for this. It's called value mapping
Yeah.
to create this charter.
Okay.
And it involves using brainstorming sessions, surveys, and other participatory methods to gather input from a really diverse group of community members.
So it's not just a top-down approach where, select few decide on the values for everyone else.
Right.
It's about making sure everyone has a voice and their perspectives are reflected in this community charter.
That's the key. This participatory approach prevents the charter from becoming this like top-down document
Yeah,
and instead ensures it reflects those diverse voices within the community. And that makes it more effective in the long run because people are more likely to buy into something they helped create.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've observed, we've listened, we've clarified our values. What's next in this process?
So the next stage is map and analyze the system. And it involves taking a closer look at all the different components that make up the community. So the resources, the relationships, the environment. It's about understanding how everything is interconnected before you start designing solutions.
Okay, so it's almost like taking inventory of all the assets, seeing how everything interacts, right? Like putting together a puzzle, but first laying out all the pieces and understanding like their shapes and their colors.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the techniques they recommend is resource mapping, which involves identifying all the physical, financial, and even human resources that are available in the community.
Hmm.
So it's about taking stock of what you have to work with.
Imagine creating a map of your own community. It's amazing when you start thinking about all the valuable resources that we often just don't even notice, right? Like local artisans, community gardens, shared tools, or even people with specialized skills. Resource mapping brings all those assets to the forefront.
And it's not just about knowing what exists. It's also about understanding how those resources are accessed and distributed.
Okay.
So this helps you to see potential inequalities or inefficiencies, which is vital information when you're trying to create a more equitable and sustainable system.
Yeah, it really highlights the importance of taking that holistic approach to community building. You can't just jump into solutions without understanding the big picture first.
Right.
So we've observed, we've clarified our values, and now we've mapped the system. What comes next in this universal structural design process?
Now it's time for the exciting part.
Oh, good.
This is where we get to co-design solutions and structures. This is where the creativity really kicks in.
Okay.
And it builds directly on all that groundwork that we've been talking about, all that observing and listening and clarifying those values.
You know, I love a good brainstorming session.
Yes.
So what does Roots of Resilience recommend for this co-design phase?
It emphasizes a really participatory approach.
Okay.
So bringing community members together to brainstorm solutions. Think workshops, design charrettes, even using online platforms where people can contribute ideas.
Yeah.
And remember, the people who participated in those earlier stages,
Right.
the observation and value clarifying, those people should really be at the heart of this.
It's about harnessing the collective genius of the community,
Absolutely.
not just relying on experts to come in from outside and say, this is how you fix things.
Exactly. The handbook really stresses that solutions shouldn't be imposed.
Okay.
They should emerge organically from within the community.
Makes sense. But brainstorming can get messy sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You have all these ideas flying around. How do you make sure that everyone's on the same page and that those ideas actually turn into something concrete?
That's where visual tools can be really helpful.
Okay.
Things like maps, diagrams, even mock-ups of what solutions could look like. It helps make those ideas more tangible, and it makes it easier for a diverse group of people to contribute, even if they have different communication styles.
So it's not just talking, you're actually sketching out possibilities,
Right.
making it more real for everyone involved.
Exactly. And a key concept here is prototyping.
Oh, interesting.
It's about building a mini version of a solution
Okay.
to test it out before you roll it out on a larger scale.
Oh, I love that.
So it's like a trial run
Yeah.
to see what works and what doesn't before you invest a ton of time and resources.
It reminds me of that whole idea of a minimum viable product in
Yeah.
the tech world,
Yes.
where you release like a basic version to get feedback and then you iterate.
That's a great connection.
Yeah.
It's about minimizing risk and maximizing learning.
Right.
And the handbook emphasizes that there's no such thing as a perfect solution right away. You start with a prototype, you test it, you gather feedback, you make adjustments. It's an iterative process.
You know, it's funny. This reminds me of that quote, no plan survives first contact with the enemy.
Right.
You have to be adaptable, willing to change course based on what you learn along the way.
Exactly. Each iteration is bringing you closer to a solution that genuinely meets the community's needs,
Right.
not just what you thought they needed at the start.
Okay, so we've co-designed solutions, we've built prototypes, we've tested, we've refined. How do we actually put those solutions into action?
That's where the next stage comes in. Implement pilots and quick wins.
Okay.
So it's about launching small-scale projects that test the feasibility of these ideas in the real world.
Moving from the drawing board to reality.
Exactly. And Roots of Resilience really stresses choosing pilot projects that can demonstrate quick wins.
Right.
These are small-scale initiatives that can produce tangible results relatively quickly.
I love that. I love the focus on quick wins
Yeah.
because it's about building momentum.
Right.
It's about showing the community that progress is possible,
Mm-hmm.
giving them a taste of success.
Yeah.
And it's like a sneak peek at the bigger vision.
Right. And those quick wins aren't just about morale.
Mm-hmm.
They provide valuable feedback for refining those solutions. So it's another layer of that iterative process that we talked about.
So, for example, if a community's goal is to create a more sustainable food system,
Mm-hmm.
they might start with a pilot project for a community garden.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
It's relatively low cost, high impact, and it can produce tangible results, fresh, locally grown food
Yeah.
in a short amount of time.
And it brings people together,
Yeah.
fosters that sense of community.
Right.
Those small steps can sometimes lead to the most remarkable transformations.
Oh, absolutely.
So many big movements started with a small group of people who just believed they could make a difference.
This whole deep dive is really showing how community building isn't about top-down solutions. It's about empowering communities to create change from within.
That's powerful. What stands out to you the most about what we've covered so far?
You know, for me, it's that emphasis on integrating traditional knowledge with modern approaches.
Yeah.
The handbook really recognizes that communities often already hold the keys to their own solutions.
They've developed practices and wisdom over generations
Yeah.
that have allowed them to survive and thrive in very specific environments.
Exactly. And the handbook highlights this beautifully with an example from India, where a community combined ancient water harvesting techniques with modern irrigation systems.
Wow.
So it's tradition and innovation working together.
Okay, so we've explored co-designing, implementing pilot projects, getting those quick wins. What's next in this journey of building resilient communities?
So now we're at the stage where all those efforts, all those pilot projects and quick wins can really start to have a lasting impact.
Right. It's about taking those things to the next level, right?
Yeah.
Making them a permanent part of the community.
Exactly. The final stage of the universal structural design process is integrate, scale, and maintain.
Yep.
And it's all about making those successful initiatives a permanent and thriving part of the community.
So we're taking those pilot projects that have shown promise and really embedding them into the fabric of how things work.
Right. And one of the key aspects here is what the handbook calls formalizing structures.
Okay.
So it's about creating systems and processes that can operate smoothly and sustainably. Even as people come and go, life changes, things happen.
Right. It's about making sure these initiatives continue to thrive for years to come.
Yeah, not just as a temporary project.
Exactly.
This might involve establishing clear roles and responsibilities,
Mm-hmm.
creating written guidelines, procedures, even setting up legal entities to manage these initiatives.
So it's moving from that kind of grassroots, volunteer-driven stage to something more structured, more self-sustaining.
Exactly. And of course, a crucial part of this stage is securing sustainable funding sources.
Right. All those amazing initiatives need a solid financial foundation to support them over the long haul.
Yeah, you don't want to see all that hard work just fizzle out because of lack of resources.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we talked about scaling up those successful initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
What does that actually look like in practice?
So scaling up basically involves expanding the reach and impact of those initiatives.
Okay.
It might involve replicating successful models in other parts of the community,
Mm.
or even partnering with other organizations to spread the benefits further.
So like taking that community garden we keep talking about
Yes.
and helping other neighborhoods create their own,
Yes.
sharing the knowledge and resources that led to its success.
Right. It's about taking what works and multiplying its positive impact, creating a ripple effect.
This is where leadership comes in,
Yeah.
right? You need people with a clear vision for the future and the ability to bring others on board.
Absolutely. And this is also where those alliances, those partnerships with external organizations can be so important.
You mentioned partnerships earlier. Why are they so crucial at this stage?
Because, no community is an island.
Mm.
So by partnering with, let's say, NGOs, government agencies, businesses, or even other communities,
Yeah.
you can gain access to this wealth of resources, expertise, and support that you might not have on your own.
So it's about building a network of allies who can really amplify the impact of these initiatives.
Precisely. These partnerships can provide funding, training, technical assistance, all sorts of support that can help those initiatives thrive.
So integrate, scale, and maintain. It's not just about launching projects and then walking away.
Right.
It's about making sure they continue to grow and adapt over time.
Exactly. It involves ongoing monitoring, evaluation, and adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
It's about creating a system where these initiatives are constantly learning, evolving, and responding to the changing needs of the community.
It's like tending a garden.
Right.
You plant the seeds, nurture the plants, and make adjustments along the way to make sure they flourish.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And it requires that long-term perspective and a commitment to continuous improvement.
I want to circle back as we wrap up our deep dive into this universal structural design process to the idea of integrating traditional knowledge
Yeah.
with modern approaches.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how the handbook really highlights that as such a key element.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that wealth of knowledge and wisdom that exists within communities,
Right.
practices and traditions that have allowed them to thrive for generations.
Mm.
And that combining that with those modern approaches can be so powerful.
It's finding that sweet spot where tradition and innovation really complement each other.
Mm.
That example from India where they combine those ancient water harvesting techniques with the modern irrigation.
No, yeah, that's a perfect
It
example.
really brings it to life.
It really shows you how to honor the past while building a sustainable future.
This whole deep dive has been so insightful. It's given me such a fresh perspective on what it takes to create lasting change in communities.
Me too.
This universal structural design process seems so effective and empowering.
It really is. It's adaptable. It can be used to address so many challenges, climate change, social justice, economic development.
Yeah.
And at its core, it's about empowering communities to shape their own futures.
Well, we've explored all 7 stages, from observe and listen to integrate, scale, and maintain.
Wow, what a journey.
It has been.
It's been a pleasure diving into this handbook with you. It's full of so many practical insights and inspiring examples.
As we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay.
What are some challenges your own community is facing?
Mm-hmm.
And how might you apply these principles we've discussed today to create positive change?
Remember, building resilient communities starts with observation, empathy, and a willingness to collaborate. It's about listening to diverse voices, respecting local knowledge, and working together to create solutions that benefit everyone.
Thank you all so much for joining us on this incredible exploration of the universal structural design process.
Yes, thank you.
We hope you found it valuable and inspiring. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep building those resilient communities.